So in this video, I'm going to be looking at our second decan of Aries. And if you remember, Aries is ruled by the Emperor. So our tarot card, the Emperor, stands for those qualities that we associate with Aries. There is leadership, there is empowerment, there is a boldness. And the sense we have with Aries is striking and bursting into action. It comes at a time of springtime, and we can see shoots bursting through the earth. And sometimes there's a chaos to this. And we saw this with our first decan, the Mars in Aries. So for our second decan, we're now looking at what happens when instead of Mars, we have the Sun in Aries. So what does the Sun offer to our Emperor? Well, we can see here that there is an element of radiance. There is a sense of enlightenment, lighting up the path. And with the Sun card here being represented by a child, liberated, free on a horse, we get a sense of forward momentum. And it was also referred to, this second decan of Aries, as Lord of Virtue. And here we have that sense of the inner child, the virtuous state of innocence and play, and just moving forward without being encumbered by worries and old patterns and thoughts that might keep us held back. There is a sense of liberation in our Sun card and a sense of shining brightly, the sense of self being brought to the outside world. And so how does this translate into a pip card? When we have our Emperor, the Aries, meeting with the Sun, the pip card we get is the Three of Wands. And you can actually see here the empowerment in the red cloak from our Emperor and the radiance of the sunshine right here across the skies. And we have a sense here, if you compare it to the first decan of Aries, which was the Two of Wands, we can see that already there has been some forward momentum. In the Two of Wands, there was a man stood on the balcony at the edge of his castle, not inside the comfort of his castle, but pushed to the outside, moving forward, starting to get an idea of bringing something into action. And here, the action has been taken. There has been an impulse that has been acted on. And we see this as a slight difference from our Two of Wands, the first decan of Aries. And when I talked about Aries, I had the myth of the golden ram to illustrate the energies of Aries. And we had the children rescued by the ram that dived into their room and scooped them up. And so our second decan of Aries could be described as the journey through the skies, as the children are rescued and they move across the skies. The ram just absolutely takes flight. One of the children survives to tell the tale and the other falls to their death. And we can see that moving forwards just without any thought or strategy can have consequences. And yet there was decisive action taken. And we can see here this kind of echoed and playing out in our Three of Wands here. This person here has taken risks. This isn't someone just passively waiting for their ships to come in. He sees the seas as golden. He sees an opportunity here, and he has taken it. He has risked things. He has gone out into the unknown. But there is something behind his assertion. There is a knowing, there is a feeling that it is going to be okay. He is directing his destiny. And what we see with these ships coming in is this sense of risk that this person has taken in their life. And where is this you? And I'm going to use another myth to describe this particular decan. In the first decan, I talked about Cassiopeia and her boastfulness and how there were consequences to her actions and her hubris. And what happened was Poseidon sent Cetus, the sea monster, to ravage and decimate Ethiopia's coastline. She was the Queen of Ethiopia. There were consequences. And as a result, we move to the next part of the myth here today. As a result, they had to consult with the oracle to see what they could do about the harm and the destruction that was battering their shores. And what came back, the advice that was given, was that Cassiopeia and the king should sacrifice their own daughter Andromeda to Cetus, the sea monster, to appease Poseidon's wrath. So Cassiopeia had stirred up Poseidon's anger, and there has to be a penalty to pay, or her country would suffer. It was already suffering. And so Andromeda, her daughter, became the sacrifice. And she represents what you need to sacrifice when you do take yourself out of your comfort zone, out of the comfort of your own castle. And you move towards the edge of things. You push yourself and you push your boundaries. You take risks. This is the Aries energy. And so what does this surrendering mean, this victim that Cassiopeia plays with her daughter? Her daughter Andromeda plays this sacrifice, and she's chained to a rock to be eaten and devoured by Cetus, this monster. What does that represent? Well, she represents your unconscious fears. She represents you becoming exposed. When you start to take yourself out of what's familiar, you expose yourself. You are not sure of what the outcome will be. And there is something that you have to give up. You sacrifice the safety of staying at home and doing nothing. She represents this. And what does Cetus represent, this sea monster, represent in your life? It represents your unknown fears. If you set out on a path, if you decide to do something, many times you don't know what the outcome would look like. This person seems to have empowered themselves. They seem determined that it will be successful, but not always. So these characters here in the constellations that we associate with Aries, we have Cassiopeia with her vanity, the sacrificial daughter in Andromeda. We have Cetus the whale showing up here as our unfounded fears. These are part of the constellations that we associate in that Aries sector of the sky, and this myth is weaving itself together to give us a sense of what can happen with the energies of Aries at this time. This is about you deciding to move forwards, to express yourself, and to take action, to move impulsively, to assert yourself. Not just have the idea, but to actually be beyond that idea into some direction. Older versions that describe this Decan of Aries talk about a woman who's clad in green, sometimes with one leg. And here we sense that springtime energy, and Susan Chang, who has written beautifully about these decans, has described this as possibly meaning that shoot that comes up through the earth and produces its leaves, that one-legged woman who brings forth the new direction. And what we see neatly on top of that stalk is those sprouting leaves that give us the idea of that glyph of Aries that we associate with the ram. We can also see here that ram-headed shoot that pushes through the earth. This is movement. This is movement against pressure and creating and moving into expression and direction, and against whatever your fears or whatever you sense might hold you back. You risk that exposure, you risk that vulnerability by making these moves, by moving away from what feels comfortable and what is known into the unknown. And so this is what I bring together for you for our second Decan of Aries, these 3 of Wands. We can see with the 3 also this idea of go forth and multiply. But with this idea of going forth and multiply, we get the sense that this person isn't just doing it for the sake of doing it. They are going forward with the strength of their convictions. So empowering their choice and feeling empowered and emboldened to make that choice with a very certain direction. This person has chosen their wand, and look at what they see as the outcome. They see golden oceans, golden seas of opportunity. They're not focusing on Cetus, the sea monster. So where can you reenact all of this in your daily life? Where can you seize on the energies now of the 3 of Wands, our second Decan of Aries? Well, I have a possible exercise for you to try. I want you to think of any idea that you've had that you haven't moved forwards with yet, not because you can't do it, but because you don't know what the outcome would be. Maybe you need to have a conversation with someone that you haven't really met fully yet. Maybe you need to start with an idea or a project that you've had on a back burner and haven't had perhaps the courage to take action on. I'm just going to suggest that you give yourself maybe 2 to 3 days to act on that and to start to move it forwards. But I haven't completely finished the myth yet. Because what we see with Andromeda chained to the rock, with that vulnerability, with that exposure, and Cetus, the sea monster, coming to devour her, is that when we set ourselves out on these courses, sometimes we don't expect the unexpected. And this is exactly what what we see happen in this myth. The unexpected comes in, the savior arrives at the critical moment. Perseus, returning from defeating Medusa, comes to the rescue of Andromeda. He shows Cetus, the head of Medusa, turns Cetus to stone and captures this maiden, rescues our damsel in distress, and carries her away into safety. And they fall in love. And then we lead to the next Decan of Aries and our next part of this mythological tale. But for now, let's also open ourselves up to know that sometimes when we step forward with the courage of our convictions and we take a direction, other circumstances that are completely unexpected can come in and support us in whatever we are facing. And for us here, Perseus has come in as that unknown resolution to the situation, something we could never have anticipated. And so where can you also be open to collaboration or receiving support if and when you need it? It doesn't have to be done alone. And that's a critical part of this myth, I believe. Open yourself up to knowing that everything's going to work out, and then watch and wait and see things as they arrive in, and people and situations arise that you couldn't have counted on. Starting to learn to trust in the unknown and the creativity that this can bring. We have the sun in Aries bringing us the second Decan of Aries, the 3 of Wands pip card, the minor arcana. Have a wonderful day.